Welcome to Gossip About Gossip, powered by Hedera Hashgraph. In each episode, we'll cut through the hype of blockchain promises and explore real-world examples of organizations creating the next generation of decentralized applications, which will bring trust back to the internet for us all.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Gossip About Gossip, the podcast where we talk about real-world applications of distributed ledger technology. My name is Zenobia Godschalk, and I'm the SVP of Communications here at Swirlds Labs, helping to grow the Hedera ecosystem. Today, I'm really excited to be joined by Shannon Diesch, who is the CEO of Quarter Homes. Hi, Shannon. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing really well. Thank you. So I think most people have probably read all of the headlines, sort of across the country, at least here in the U.S., that homeownership is becoming less and less affordable or achievable, especially at the starter home level. Can you tell us a little bit about Quarter Homes and their role in helping to solve that problem?
Yeah, and that's exactly why Quarter came into existence. We have a team of really smart mortgage and finance and real estate professionals who saw the problem and thought, okay, let's try to figure out how to solve this and, make home ownership more affordable, more accessible to people who currently are locked out of the traditional mortgage sector. And it was funny because when we started, the team came together and said, let's think about how to make the mortgage industry more efficient using new technologies. And we spent a bunch of time and we went out and talked to a bunch of people, and it became very clear very quickly to us that there really wasn't a way to make the mortgage industry more efficient in a way that the mortgage industry was ever going to accept. There's so many people along the value chain that are getting little pieces and parts of the capital that the homeowner, the consumer is paying, but they're just getting little pieces. They don't see the way to make it more efficient. And so we just decided, let's throw the whole thing away and start from the ground up. And that's where Quarter came from.
All right. And so now you sort of have this, blank slate approach. I think like you said, the mortgage industry has not changed in decades, right? It's still the same processes. It's still very much the amount of paperwork you have to sign, on a mortgage or a refinance is ridiculous. Yes. But if you take this, sort of blue sky approach and you say, great, let's reimagine homeownership from the ground up, what does that look like?
Yeah, so at Quarter, it's a whole new way of thinking about home ownership. And what we've done is we have taken homeowners, people that want to go out and buy homes, and we're pairing them with people who want to invest in properties, right? That's another piece that a lot of people are locked out of. You can't participate in investing in real estate unless you are living in a home because it's so expensive to go out, buy a property, get a property management company to take care of that. So really what Quarter is doing is we're taking the home occupant, the person who wants to buy the home, and matching them with these people who want to invest in property. And what the result of that is 50% cheaper for the consumer than a traditional mortgage, between 20 to 30% cheaper than market rent across the 13,000 zip codes that we've run our model against in the US, and returns for the investor similar to what you would see if you were to go out and buy a rental property and get a property manager and rent it out. And so it's really exciting. And the cool part about it is we're using this new distributed ledger technology to really make that possible. Because now you can come and you can fractionally invest in a property, down to $1 if that's what you want to do, and participate in this ecosystem that's never existed before, which is investment in owner-occupied real estate.
And so is the goal that you would have, as an investor, you would have a pool of homes that you can potentially invest in, or are you investing in a single home and that, occupant? How would it work?
Yeah, so end state goal is to allow consumers or investors to come in and say, I have $1,000 or I have $1 million that I want to deploy on the Quarter platform. And you can either go in and, say, I really love the Phoenix zip code. I think that's going to appreciate a lot over the next 3 years. And you can deploy your capital there. Or you can say, I just want to spread it across the country, kind of distribute my risk a little bit and distribute it across a wide variety of houses. So it's really up to the investor. It's in their hands, just like it's in the consumer's hands to pick their own house. We don't have a pool of houses that they have to pick from. They can go out and find their dream home. and buy it through quarter.
Okay. And so say now I've been looking and looking and I finally found my dream home. It's maybe a little bit out of my reach in terms of the total budget or the down payment. What does it look like interacting with quarter homes from the consumer or the buyer side?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, right, the cool thing is we're so much cheaper than a traditional mortgage, so you can actually kind of expand your purchase price a little bit, and keep your debt to income relatively low. The other piece of it, right, is if you're coming to quarter, we give you what we call a minimum retained equity, which is based on your credit profile, based on your income. That's how much of the home you have to own. So let's say it's 5% of the home that you need to come in, purchase. The investors will make up the other 95%. If you don't have that 5% down payment, say, you just haven't been able to save because you're shoveling money out to rent every month, and so you haven't been able to build up that little nest egg. What you can do is we have a whole program kind of designed to allow people to still get into homes even without that big down payment burden, despite the fact that it's still a much smaller down payment burden than a traditional mortgage. And it's called our Impact Investment Fund, and that allows for investors to come in, play the part of down payment assistance, and get paid back over time. For the consumer, they're still paying, at that point, they'll be paying market rent until they pay it off, and then they're back down to below market rent values.
Okay. And so now I've signed up, and essentially I am, I've put down 5%. What does that look like for me long term? I'm making regular mortgage payments. Is the investor also making regular mortgage payments? Are those serviced by a typical bank?
Yep. So how it works, right? There's no lending involved. So we talk about it being kind of an equity investment versus a debt investment. And how it works for the consumer is on a monthly basis, you pay what we call a tenants in common fee to your investors. And that gives you sole occupancy rights of the house. It gives you the ability to make capital improvements if you want, to paint the walls whatever color you want. You really benefit from having all of the same rights as a traditional homeowner through a mortgage or through a cash purchase. And for the investor, they receive those monthly payments, so they're getting those monthly cash flows. You're also entitled to your pro rata rights of the appreciation. So if you own 5% of the home, you're going to get 5% of the upside. We see a lot of these other new prop tech fintechs coming out that are giving the investors a much bigger upside and kind of taking that out of the pocket of the consumer. We're not doing that. We're saying whatever equity you own, you're going to get your fair share, just like the investors get their fair share. The other interesting part of the tokenization what allows Quarter to do is the consumer at any point in time can buy more of their property if they want. Say they want to take that 50% savings and invest it in their home. They can do that on a monthly basis, just buy little fractions of their home. They can also sell fractions of their home if they're above their minimum retained equity and need capital. Say they need to get some liquidity out to buy braces for their kids. They can do that really simply, really easily. Because of this new distributed ledger technology, we can just fractionalize those pieces, give it to the investors, and the homeowner can get that cash out.
Okay. And so then say I've been in the home for maybe 10 years and I've, in addition to making my monthly payments, I've, put away a little bit every month and been able to get to, 25% equity. And then all of a sudden I have to move. What happens now?
Yeah, so it's actually, there's a couple of things that you can do with that. And again, just one of the cool pieces of this new technology allows us so many different paths to kind of go down. So one of the things the consumer can do is say, I want to pick up my financing and move it to the place that I'm moving next. And the interesting part is because we pull forward the appreciation value for the investors, say they bought a $100,000, $200,000 home initially, and it's appreciated $300,000. That appreciation can be basically picked up and moved to the new home really seamlessly, really easily. The other thing is if they're moving and they've decided that they want to buy a home or they're moving into their significant other's home, let's say, we can keep the house on the platform. Quarter, we just need a 90-day notice and they can move out. Quarter will purchase their interest in the property from them and then either remarket it to a new consumer or sell the property. And when that happens, again, the investors get their pro rata rights to the sale proceeds.
Okay. And is there sort of an ideal, price point for you all? Are you trying to target, a certain kind of homeowner?
Yeah, it's a good question. So kind of in our iteration of this, we've come up with these 4 quadrants that represent different types of target demographics. And the scales are, understanding of financial markets, and then accessibility into a mortgage. So, right, a lot of people can't access mortgage. Some people can, but don't really understand the complexities of all of the pieces that go into that. Right now, we're focusing on the left side, right? The people who don't have access to a mortgage. Those are people like millennials who just can't save for a down payment. Maybe they have good paying jobs, but they just can't afford to live in these really expensive areas that prices just continue to rise in. I talk about that's where I fit, right? Boulder, I live near Boulder, and the average house price is well over $1 million at this point. So even as someone who might have a really good education and might have a really good job, it still feels really inaccessible and really hard to get into. And in the lower left is the people who, have really stable jobs, but can't afford to live in the communities they serve. These are teachers and firefighters and police officers, people who, serve these communities, but have to commute from 45 minutes away because they can't afford it, or they have to rent. And so those are really our initial target demographics, those folks who just can't get into properties. That being said, there's so much flexibility and affordability in the quarter model that I think eventually, right, people who maybe have a lot of access to mortgage, but want to be able to deploy their capital in different ways, I think those people will eventually want to come on board. It's just, we want to start with the people on the left side.
Got it. And then, you mentioned a little bit that all of this is made much easier because you can tokenize these assets. Are you able to sort of walk us through that side of it, and, how you're using the Hedera platform, how you're using TOKO, how those things come together, and maybe if that is even presented to the consumer or if that's just happening in the back end?
Yeah, so for the consumer, they don't really touch any of the tokenization aspect of it. We really wanted to keep it simple for them, keep it straightforward, feel like, I'm just going through a traditional mortgage with a different flavor. On the investor side, that's really where you get into the nitty gritty of the tokens. And it's super cool and super exciting. And I can nerd out a lot about it. But I'll kind of give the quick rundown. So Quarter actually exists as a multi-token ecosystem. So we have several tokens that we issue over the lifespan of a house, and it makes for some really interesting and unique value propositions. So we talk about the tokenization of the property itself. So that's, $1, you get 1 token. So if a house costs $200,000 and an investor comes in with 150 of that, they'll get 150,000 of what we call asset tokens. And these are linked to a specific property. They entitle you to your TIC fee that you get on a monthly basis from the home occupant. They entitle you to your fair share of appreciation, which comes in the form of the other token we have, which is our HPI token. And then you're also entitled to your pro rata rights of the sale proceeds when and if the house sells off of the Quarter platform. The HPI tokens, HPI standing for Home Price Index, represent exactly that, right? The value increase or decrease of the property over time. And the cool thing about Quarter is that we're able to pull those forward to being distributed on an annual basis. So traditionally you buy a home and you have to wait until it sells to realize that appreciation. But because of this tokenization, we're able to pull that forward and release that appreciation on an annual basis to the investor. And that token is actually backed by all of the appreciation of all of the properties on the Quarter platform. So it can rise and fall. It's more like an index than anything to the entire market that we have. And to speak a little bit about the partners that we have with TOKO and Hedera, we love both of those people. Very glad to be here and talking with you about this. But TOKO's been outstanding. We connected to them through DLA, who's our legal firm that we've been working with to really thread the needle on security laws and consumer protection laws. But they've been an outstanding partner through and through, really working with us to understand how the tokens will work, how they'll be minted, what type of metadata we can put into those tokens, and smart contracts, and all of those pieces that are kind of behind the scenes for most people. And on Hedera, we love because we can go to meetings and someone will say, oh, I don't know about this distributed ledger technology, FTX, whatever. And then we pull up the Hedera governing council page, and immediately they're like, oh, okay, these guys are serious. They know what they're talking about. And so it's really nice to have that really solid, really, adult-like presence in the industry. It's great.
Yeah. And I think, for investors, that transparency is rare in real estate, right? I think you're probably used to getting a report, I don't know, maybe quarterly or annually. Certainly not only the opportunity, but the transparency of the investment is remarkable.
Yeah, absolutely. And we love that, right? And you really can get a sense of what type of properties I'm investing in with things like REITs, right? You maybe have a little bit of a sense of what type of properties or where, but with Quarter, you can really go in and pick the property you want to, and just have all of that information right at your fingertips.
Yeah. Well, Shannon, I know you all are, you are newly launched. I believe the first property that you tokenized was actually your own. Is that right?
Yeah, it was my property. For a variety of reasons. A, I just love the product so much. I wanted it as soon as I could have it. And then B, as we worked through some of the kinks doing the first property, we definitely wanted someone who could roll with the punches a little bit. And so, yeah, it was my property. We bought it back in November, and we officially tokenized it just a few weeks ago, sitting in the room with the TOKO team. It was a big celebration for all of us, months and months and years really of working together to get to that point, but a big accomplishment.
Yeah. And if either investors or consumers want to learn more or potentially participate, where should they go?
Yeah, we have a website, quarterhomes.com. And they can come there. There's a form they can fill out. It comes directly to my inbox. So I respond to all of those personally right now. And definitely, I'm always happy to jump on calls with people who are interested, either whether it's a consumer or an investor or just someone that wants to learn more about what we're doing. I'm super proud of the work that we've done and the problems that we're facing and attacking as a team. And so it's exciting times for all of us.
Wonderful. Well, Shannon, thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to following you and continuing with you on your journey. And we wish you all the success.
Thank you so much.
Have a good one.
You too.